Imagine the government tells you, work only 3 days this week. Imagine television shutting down at 10:30 every night. Imagine doing homework by candlelight. This happened in Britain, 1974. Not the Victorian era. Living memory. The 3-day week. For 9 weeks, Britain nearly stopped functioning. Businesses worked 3 days. Electricity cut 9 hours daily. Families lived by candlelight. Children went to bed in freezing darkness. This wasn't wartime. This was 1974, just 50 years ago. How did this happen? The 3-day week ran from 1st January to 7th March 1974. 9 weeks when Britain worked 3 days and survived on emergency power. 1.5 million people lost jobs immediately. Entire industries collapsed. Families struggled to survive. The country was falling apart. Two catastrophes collided: a miners' strike and the global oil crisis. Arab nations quadrupled oil prices overnight, $2.90 to $11.65 per barrel. Britain depended on coal power. Miners went on strike. The lights went out across the entire nation. November 1973. Coal miners imposed overtime ban. The National Union of Mine Workers demanded higher wages. Coal production dropped immediately. Power stations ran low on fuel. The government offered 16.5% pay rise. Miners refused. Not enough. Simultaneously, the oil crisis devastated Britain. October 1973, Yom Kippur War. Arab nations stopped oil exports to Western countries. Oil prices exploded overnight. Britain imported most of its oil. Suddenly, energy became impossibly expensive. Two crises, same moment. Prime Minister Edward Heath faced impossible choice: pay miners what they demanded or let country run out of power. He refused to negotiate. 13th December 1973. Heath announced emergency measures. Commercial electricity restricted. 3-day working week coming. Britain would have to survive on emergency power. 31st December 1973. Midnight. The 3-day week began. Commercial users limited to 3 consecutive days of electricity weekly. Not their choice which days. Government assigned them. Businesses that used more faced prosecution. The entire British economy forced to stop working 4 days every week. Britain generated most electricity from coal-fired power stations. Miners' overtime ban meant less coal production. Power stations' fuel reserves dropped dangerously low. Without miners working full capacity, the entire national grid was at risk. The government calculated Britain had weeks, maybe days, before complete blackout. Heath gambled. He believed restricting electricity would pressure miners to return, make public blame miners for hardship, force them to accept lower pay offer. It was political brinkmanship, the entire country as hostage. Millions of ordinary people caught between government and unions. Neither side willing to compromise. The rules were brutal. Commercial electricity users worked only 3 consecutive days weekly. You couldn't choose which days. Government assigned them by rota. Work longer than allowed? Prosecution. Use too much power? Fines. Even on your 3 working days, you couldn't operate extended hours. Television stopped broadcasting at 10:30 every night. Both BBC and ITV. 10:30. Screens went black. National close down to save electricity. This continued until 8th February, when restriction lifted after election announcement. But for 5 weeks, evening television simply ended early every single night. Some exemptions existed. Hospitals continued operating. Supermarkets stayed open. Newspaper printing presses ran. Essential services only. Everything else shut down or severely restricted. Factories, offices, shops, restaurants. If you weren't essential, you worked 3 days or closed completely. Rota disconnections hit homes too. Different areas lost power at different times. Up to 9 hours daily without electricity. You'd read local newspaper to learn when your district would be cut off. Then you'd plan your entire day around those blackout hours. Cooking, heating, everything. 50-mile-per-hour speed limit imposed nationwide. Conserve petrol. Petrol was scarce anyway. Families walked everywhere instead of driving. Garages couldn't get spare parts. The entire transport system struggling. Britain wasn't just working 3 days. It was barely moving at all. Panic buying began immediately. Candles disappeared from shops. Paraffin lamps sold out. Gas cookers, camping equipment, torches, batteries. Anything that didn't need electricity became precious. Families hoarded supplies. Shops couldn't restock fast enough. Emergency lighting became the most valuable commodity in Britain. Families kept candles in cupboards constantly. Paraffin lamps for lighting. Every evening meant candlelit dinners. Not romantic, necessary. Mothers cooked before 5 p.m. when power cuts started. Cold food for evening. One family's 9th February dinner, lobster soup, roast chicken, potatoes, all by candlelight. Children did homework by candlelight. Difficult, straining eyes, limited light. No television after 10:30 anyway. Families gathered around fireplaces for warmth, made toast on open fires. Grandparents told ghost stories in flickering candlelight. Entertainment returned to Victorian era. No electricity meant no modern life. Morning routines became ordeals. Mother waking children with candle. No heating overnight. Freezing bedrooms. Dark. Cold. Getting dressed by candlelight in winter darkness. Children remember the cold vividly. The fog. The stress on mothers' faces. Single parents especially struggled, trying to maintain normality when nothing was normal. Life revolved around power cut schedules. Read newspaper each day to learn when your area loses electricity. Plan cooking. Plan washing. Plan everything around those hours. No spontaneity, no flexibility. Just constant awareness of when darkness would come, when cold would return, when normal life would stop again. 7 p.m. on winter evening 1974. Entire streets plunged into darkness. No streetlights, no shop lights, just candles flickering in windows. Eerie silence. No television sounds, no radio. Just families sitting in candlelight, waiting for power to return. Britain looked medieval. This wasn't history. This was living memory. Battery radios became lifelines. Only way to get news during blackouts. Families gathered around radio listening to updates. Will strike end? Will power return? Will government back down? Every broadcast brought hope or disappointment. Radio announcers became most important voices in Britain. Only connection to wider world when electricity died. Elderly people suffered terribly. Living alone, no heating for hours, dependent on electricity for warmth. Many couldn't afford extra candles or paraffin. Neighbors checked on each other. Community support networks formed. People sharing supplies, helping vulnerable. 3-day week revealed who had community support and who had none. Terrifying for isolated elderly. 10:30 p.m. Television announces close down to save power. Families watch final minutes of broadcasting. Then, darkness, silence. Bed by candlelight. This happened every night for 5 weeks until 8th February. Television as daily reminder, your country is failing. Your government cannot provide basic services. Your normal life is suspended indefinitely. For children, strangely, it was exciting. Adventures by candlelight, cozy evenings by fireplace, different from normal routine. 8-year-olds remember it as special time with family. But they also remember the cold, the fog, the stress on parents' faces. Children sensed adults' fear even while finding magic in candlelight. Schools stayed open somehow. Children wore coats indoors. Classrooms barely heated. Shortened school days to conserve power. Homework by candlelight at home. Teachers improvising. Education continued but diminished. Children of 1974 lost weeks of normal schooling. Their education disrupted by political conflict they couldn't understand or influence. Mothers collected children from school, rushed home, cooked dinner before 5 p.m. power cut, story time at 7:30 by candlelight, then bed in darkness. No heating. Children remember mother's exhaustion, the constant worry, trying to maintain routines when infrastructure failed. Mothers bore crisis burden, while fathers scrambled for work. Grandparents told stories by candlelight. Ghost stories, tales from their childhoods, war stories. Families reconnected through forced togetherness. No television meant conversation. Generations sharing memories. 3-day week accidentally created family bonding impossible in normal times. Silver lining in national crisis. Forced intimacy through shared hardship. Children who lived through it say, today's generation wouldn't cope. They're probably right. Waking in freezing darkness. No heating overnight. Getting dressed in cold. No hot breakfast during power cuts. Walking to school in darkness. Modern children with central heating and unlimited electricity cannot imagine this hardship. 50 years ago, living memory. Children adapted, played board games by candlelight, read books, drew pictures, invented games. Childhood resilience remarkable. Adults struggled, worried about jobs, money, heating bills, food. Children found adventure in adversity. But those children, now adults, remember their parents' stress, the unspoken fear, the sense that something fundamental had broken in their country. First days of 3-day week. 1.5 million people laid off. Unemployment doubled within hours. Factories couldn't operate on 3 days weekly. Too expensive. Production lines need continuity. Many businesses simply closed permanently. Couldn't survive. Workers arrived Monday morning. Locked gates. No work. No warning. Jobs gone overnight. Small shops lost £10 daily revenue. Huge amount in 1974. Many businesses went bankrupt. Couldn't survive losing 4 days weekly trading. Couldn't afford to heat premises without electricity. Couldn't keep stock fresh. Couldn't attract customers in darkness. 3-day week didn't just reduce business. It killed businesses permanently across Britain. Office prices that stayed open had workers in overcoats. No heating. Typing in gloves. Working by candlelight when power failed. Trying to maintain productivity in impossible conditions. Phones didn't work during cuts. Couldn't contact clients. Couldn't process paperwork. British business operating at fraction of capacity. Economy hemorrhaging money. Everyday 3-day week continued, cost millions. Fathers took second jobs cash in hand, desperate to feed families. One father worked on pig farm for pennies after factory closed. Another lost Saturday job as teenager, needed that income. TV workers lost employment when broadcasting hours cut. Everyone scrambling. Formal economy collapsing. Informal economy thriving through desperation. If these forgotten stories of British resilience fascinate you, subscribe. We're documenting the crises that shaped modern Britain, the struggles your parents or grandparents survived, the hardships that seem impossible today but happened within living memory. Subscribe to keep exploring this vanished Britain. More incredible stories coming. Unemployment offices overwhelmed. Queues stretching streets. Men who'd worked 30 years suddenly jobless. Claiming benefits for first time. Shame and necessity. Families struggling with mortgage payments. No income for weeks. Savings depleted. 3-day week created unemployment crisis that lasted months after emergency ended. Scars permanent for many families who never recovered financially. 24th January 1974. NUM voted for full strike, 81% supported. 5th February. Full strike began. Coal production stopped completely. Miners demanded 35% pay rise. Government offered 16.5%. Deadlock. Neither side compromising. Country held hostage between them. Heath refused to negotiate. Believed he could break miners through public pressure. Make people blame unions for hardship. Force miners to accept lower pay. Political calculation. Except it failed. British public didn't blame miners. They blamed government. Heath's gamble collapsed. His stubbornness prolonged crisis unnecessarily while families suffered. 9th of February 1974. Government declared state of emergency. Full strike in effect. No coal production. Power reserves critically low. Britain weeks from complete blackout. Hospitals prioritized. Everything else sacrificed. State of emergency meant government could impose any measures necessary. Democracy suspended. Emergency powers activated. Constitutional crisis alongside energy crisis. Government hypocrisy revealed. One junior minister urged public, clean teeth in dark, save electricity, sacrifice for nation. Next day, newspaper published photo of his house. Every light blazing, curtains open, whole house lit up. While preaching sacrifice to freezing families by candlelight, politicians lived comfortably with full power. Public fury inevitable. Miners stood firm. They worked dangerous jobs, underground in darkness, risking lives daily. Their wages barely covered living costs, while coal made Britain rich. They watched executives live comfortably from coal profits. They'd had enough. Striking wasn't greed, it was desperation. Demanding fair share of wealth they created through dangerous labor. Ordinary Britons caught between. Government stubbornness, union demands, both sides inflexible. Meanwhile, families froze. Children did homework by candlelight. Businesses collapsed, jobs disappeared. Elderly suffered. The powerful fought political battles, while powerless endured consequences. 3-day week revealed brutal truth. When government and unions clash, ordinary people pay price. 7th of February 1974. Heath made desperate move, called snap election. Election date, 28 February. Campaign slogan, "Who governs Britain?" Heath tried to turn public against miners, make strike the issue, force voters to choose, elected government or unions. Risky gamble. Who governs Britain became election's defining question. Heath wanted answer. Elected government governs, not unions. But voters asked different question. Which government? One causing crisis or one that might end it? Heath's strategy backfired. Voters didn't blame miners. They blamed government for intransigence, for refusing to negotiate during national emergency. 28th of February 1974. Election day. Voters decided in candlelight. Polling stations had emergency power. People voted while living under 3-day week restrictions. Some couldn't get to polling stations due to transport issues. Some worked only 3 days, couldn't take time off. Election during national emergency. Democracy tested by crisis. Results shocked everyone. Hung Parliament. Conservatives, 297 seats, 37.9% votes. Labour, 301 seats, 37.2%. Liberals, 14 seats, balance of power. Heath won more votes, but Wilson won more seats. Constitutional confusion. Who actually won? Weekend, 2nd–3rd March. Heath negotiated desperately with Liberal leader Jeremy Thorpe. Attempted coalition. Thorpe demanded electoral reform as price. Heath refused. Even with Liberals, coalition would be 14 seats short of majority. Math didn't work. Heath's position hopeless. He'd gambled everything. Lost everything. 4th March, 1974. Heath resigned. Harold Wilson returned as Prime Minister, 3rd time. Labour minority government. First action, settle miners' strike. Labour agreed to 35% pay rise immediately. Miners voted to accept. 28th February. Miners returned to work. Strike over. Crisis ending. 7th March, 1974. 3-day week officially ended. 8th March. Normal working patterns resumed. 9 weeks of darkness, hardship, suffering. Over. Lights came back on. Businesses reopened. Families celebrated warmth. But scars remained. Businesses bankrupted. Jobs lost permanently. Trust in government shattered. 3-day week changed Britain forever. Could Britain survive another 3-day week today? Probably not. Modern Britain depends totally on electricity, internet, computers, digital banking, communication networks, everything electronic. 1974 Britain was less dependent, still had cash economy, still had manual systems, still had community networks, still had resilience built from wartime memory. Today's Britain is more comfortable but more fragile. 1 week without electricity would create chaos unimaginable in 1974. 3-day week was a test of British resilience. Families survived 9 weeks of darkness, cold, unemployment, fear. Children did homework by candlelight. Workers walked miles to jobs that might not exist tomorrow. Mothers cooked on fireplaces. Elderly endured freezing homes alone. Britain adapted, endured, survived. But it broke something fundamental. Trust between government and governed. Belief that leaders prioritized people over politics. Confidence that system worked. 3-day week revealed British government could let citizens freeze in darkness rather than compromise with workers. Could sacrifice millions for political positioning. That revelation never healed. People who lived through 3-day week never forgot how easily normal life disappeared, how quickly comfortable Britain became desperate Britain, how close the country came to complete collapse. This happened 50 years ago, not ancient history. Your parents remember, your grandparents remember. They remember candles, darkness, cold, fear. They remember when Britain worked only 3 days a week and somehow survived